Hey guys, I'd like to welcome you to the Kortex Media Podcast, where we navigate the fast-paced world of automotive and more. I'm your host, Corson Schmidt. Here today, I have Jack Duffy Protentis. He is the founder and CEO of eSki, a Massachusetts-based startup pioneering fully electric personal watercraft. With a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, Jack's journey is defined by innovation, resilience, and a passion for sustainability. Jack became the first blind graduate in WPI's history, channeling his unique perspective into solving real-world problems. Since launching eSki in 2021, Jack has led the company through major accelerator programs, secured the Mass CEC grant, and won the Berkshire Sustainability Challenge. Under his leadership, eSki is transforming the 1.5 billion global personal watercraft market with quieter, cleaner, and more efficient electric jet skis, designed to serve both rental operators and adventure seekers. Jack's story is one of the breaking barriers, building community, partnerships, and reimagining what's possible in recreational mobility. It's great to have you on, Jack.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
No worries. So before we truly dive into it, do you mind just going through your background, what inspired you to originally get into engineering and create such a new, innovative idea for the watercraft industry?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of how it all came about is what I would say is, so I was born legally blind, but I would say, unfortunately, I was born a car guy that can't drive a car. Um, so, I'd always loved working on things, taking things apart, fixing them, and I ended up having a love for cars due to that. But as I started losing my vision more and more because it's degenerative, I started realizing, I'm not going to be able to drive a car as I sort of had envisioned, growing up as a child. So I started getting into recreational vehicles. I built a go-kart for myself. And then, I got a pocket bike. And then, started getting into ATVing, snowmobiling, jet skiing, and boating. Because I realized that these vehicles that I can use, I can use with some help from friends and family. Maybe, they're sitting on the back of the vehicle, or, every vehicle has its sort of its own methodology that I've come up with over the years. But just from riding these things, using them, working on them, I really started realizing that they are polluting in ways that people don't necessarily, it's not in the forefront like, something like a car is, because, a lot of people use it every day. And
Yeah.
recreational vehicles are things that people, tend to just sort of hop on and use, or, is certainly smaller, industry than road going vehicles. So it started to bother me that, these vehicles that are getting me into nature, getting me to these, unique vistas, or, just places that you normally can't get to, in nature, or also harming nature in that journey. So, I thought, I have to do something about this. It didn't feel right that I was having fun at the cost of the next generation's ability to have fun.
For sure.
So, I attended WPI, got a mechanical engineering degree. And then, started looking at recreational vehicles, seeing what was the most logical to electrify. And landed on jet skis because it kind of gives the user the best one-to-one for current technology available. If you look at recreational vehicles, boats, ATVs, snowmobiles, people tend to do those, 5, 6, 7 hours at a time. But jet skis tend to, people tend to be done with them anywhere between a half an hour and an hour.
Yeah.
So, I thought, well, that's a great starting point, electrify, because, electric powertrains can do that for a user, and give that experience, but just, electrified. So yeah, that's sort of how I got into engineering, and in my love for engineering, and sort of ended up at jet skis.
That's awesome. That's super cool. And to your point, that's pretty cool that you kind of did your research to figure out what would be the easiest to electrify with looking at the ride rate, right? How much time people are spending on these units, because that's something maybe that really goes over people's heads when thinking of that. Because if people want to ride all day, they're going to ride all day, and they need a combustion engine to do that, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly.
can you walk us through a little bit of the development of your prototype and some of the biggest technical hurdles that you've overcome so far?
Yeah, yeah. So, our first prototype, what we did was, we were sort of interested to see if we could first offer retrofitting kit for consumers, because that'd be cheaper for us, easier for consumers. You just buy a jet ski with a blown motor. We have a powertrain, we sell it to you, or we take the jet ski and retrofit it.
Yeah.
So we done that in a Yamaha body. To put together our powertrain. And for the first one, just to try and save on some costs, we decided to not utilize the hot swapping battery system, which we can talk about in a bit. But they were just rigidly mounted batteries in the body. But we pretty quickly started realizing that just because of how small jet skis are, they're built very tightly around a gasoline engine. And by the time you kind of shoehorn an electric powertrain in there, there's things that are, you have more space where you don't need it, not enough space where you do need it.
Yeah.
So it ended up having a bit of a funky ride, that it was very nose heavy, because we had to put some batteries up front just because that was where the space was. So that was sort of when we realized, okay, well, it looks like we'll have to make our own body to accommodate an electric powertrain in an efficient manner. So I would say that was probably our first biggest hurdle with, our first prototype, was just trying to get everything in there to line up and be in a position that fits all right and still gives it a decent drive quality.
For sure. No, that's a huge point, right? Because you want to make sure that weight is differentiated throughout your drive, because if it's not, it's not going to drive the way it could, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Especially,
Cool.
on the water, where that's your center of gravity is critical.
Mm-hmm. And how have you adapted that to the actual e-ski bike themselves?
Yeah. So, since we now have the ability to develop our own body, it's allowed us to clear out some space in the footwells around where the motor is. We kind of narrowed up the seat a little bit, because again, for jet skis, they have to have it wide over the engine, because you have your intake, your cylinders, and your exhaust, versus we just have a single diameter motor, so we can bring that in a little. So we brought the seat width in a little bit, and then with that allowed us to put batteries kind of more in the back, and really where you want the center of gravity to be, which is kind of a hair back from the center of the jet ski. It's is where you want it, and then once a person sits down, that kind of brings that forward a little bit, getting you pretty
Mm-hmm.
much right in the center. And because of developing a jet ski around the body around the powertrain, it's also allowed us to play a little bit with the design. I'm sure if you've seen the jet ski, you can see we kind of used a lot of negative space in the design, because we can have things a lot lower. Things are a lot more, they're a lot easier to compact in the right spots once you start kind of designing ground up bodies. So
For sure. Yeah, if you can design it your way, you're going to be able to make it look the way that you guys want it, which is
yeah,
really going to appeal to the customer and kind of look different than that. I went on your website and took a quick peek, and they look way better than the normal jet ski. They look a little bit smaller. They look sportier. I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but they look sportier, so they look a little more fun. Um, what battery system are you guys using, and what advantages does it offer for rental and kind of individual riders? And how much time does one ride usually, or is it going to last once you guys release it?
yeah. So really, what sets us apart is kind of what I alluded to earlier, which is our we have a hot swapping battery system.
Okay.
So this allows for, especially for rental companies, in doing good customer validation. They're saying, even if I wanted to go electric, especially in peak season, I can't have assets sitting for an hour, 2 hours, however long it takes to charge, while I have a line of people waiting to rent jet skis. They're like that doesn't fly for me. So that's sort of where the idea spawned from, was to have a hot swapping battery system where the rest of the jet ski, there's no reason why the motor, the body, the impeller, that stuff can just go continuously. It's the charge time to get the batteries. So if you separate those two things out, then you're looking at about a 5-minute turnaround time, which is pretty similar to what jet ski rental guys are used to, because they're they have a couple jerry cans, they're filling up the jet skis between rentals, you're just topping off the gas tank, and that's that works for them. So with the hot swapping batteries, it's about anywhere from an hour to 2 hours of runtime, depending on conditions, how hard you're pushing it.
Nice.
We have 65-mile-an-hour top speed, so if you're gassing it the whole time and never letting go, it's going to run down quicker. But
For sure.
and then the charge time with the hot swapping allows you on a level 3 charger to be at about 45 minutes. So that really works well for rental companies. It means each jet ski can have about 2 batteries. You can come in, swap them out, and just kind of keep them cycling through.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's like electric power tools, like Milwaukee or DeWalt, right? You just have your little batteries, put them on the charger, throw them on when they're dead, and keep cycling through. Do you guys sell the charging station with the eSki itself?
Yeah. So there'll be 2 different charges, just because depending on what companies, what a rental company or even individual is doing, each charger can work differently for each different use case. So the jet ski does come with a level 1 charger, which is just can plug into your outlet. So some people may just want that. So if somebody's in a marina, they may just want to use the shore power that's already available there, because that's 240, which is about a 3-hour charge time. So maybe they get a couple more batteries, but that still works for them. And there's also some marinas that are starting to put in level 3, so they might say, hey, look, I already have a level 3 charger, I'm good. But it's certainly an add-on option that just to kind of have that more customization for each individual consumer and actually their use case.
For sure. Yeah.
So
no, it's nice that you guys are kind of giving a variety of charging stations, because you see that more and more with cars now. We keep moving up to higher and higher level charging stations, and people seem to keep eating that up. As for the batteries, are the batteries themselves waterproof, or do you guys just have everything enclosed, sealed super well?
Yes, we have everything enclosed super well. So we're buying off the shelf batteries. They're 21700s, but they're in our whole own custom architecture, in our hermetically sealed battery case that itself is IP68 rated, and then that gets dropped into a secondary, they connect the receiver with another lid on top, which is also IP68 rated on the seal. And there's also active drainage in that receiver as well. So you can either, you could try and flood, the compartment, it'd be the receiver compartment, it'd be fine. You could also, dunk your battery in the water, pull it out, slot it in, lock it down, and you're good.
That's awesome. Yeah, because that was one of my biggest questions, was how would you seal this, especially with batteries? But you guys have two systems to really get it sealed, so there's really no issues there, even if it does flip over.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the most surprising or enthusiastic feedback that you've received from users who've used or tried out the eSki?
Yeah, I think the thing that a lot of people get very excited about is the combination of the performance, how quickly it accelerates, how fast it is, in combination with how quiet it is. It's sort of this surreal feeling of you're on this thing that traditionally is extremely loud, and now all you're hearing is the water breaking, and usually in your head, when something's high performance, you think usually it's louder. That's why you see those big sports boats out there. The offshore power boats, or even something like Lamborghini or Ferrari, which is extremely loud. In it, that kind of in your brain that's associated with fast.
Yeah.
But when you get thrown in the back of your seat, you're barely holding on to the handlebars, and all you hear is the whoosh of the water. It kind of, your brain doesn't compute really.
Sure. No, that's true. That's for sure. I wouldn't even put that into account, right? Especially on the water. Those things how much are they much quicker than the gas powered ones?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
so we have to limit the top speed to 65.
Yeah.
'Cause that's just what the Coast Guard, it's not necessarily a law, but it's requested by the Coast Guard for jet ski manufacturers too.
Okay.
We could go faster, but obviously that would drain the battery more. But um, it's certainly much faster accelerating, and it could go faster. We'll probably have some demo units that people can try out that
The governor's
could
taking
go
off.
all
They can
faster.
go a little faster if they want to. That's awesome. What does a typical day look like for you now that you're in the building process? How soon do you guys want to get things rolling out as well?
Yeah. So right now we're in a fundraising round to try and build kind of the next 4 pre-production units. It's kind of the goal is to bridge from this prototype to manufacturing. So obviously for me, a lot of it is investor outreach. Putting together investor pipeline. Utilizing my network. As well as then also obviously leading the team on the development of individual components, making sure that things of that nature are on track. We have that Mass CEC grant that we're utilizing to really build out one of the hot swapping batteries with receivers in a very clean and polished way. Just to also kind of help de-risk the technology. And then, there's a lot of things on my end too, doing other grant applications, just sort of doing all the stuff.
Getting everything rolling to really pick things up. And how soon are you hoping to have the jet ski launch so you can have consumers coming to buy it, or rental companies wanting to buy off of you?
Yeah. I mean, if somebody dropped our round in my lap tomorrow, I'd say we'd be about 18 months away from starting to deliver on the first units. We already have about,
That's exciting.
we have about $3.3 million worth of LOIs from rental companies already. So about half our first series production already spoken for. So we'd start getting those out, and then also obviously using some other jet skis just to generate more POs. But yeah.
That's exciting. That's awesome. Who is your biggest role model in your entrepreneurial journey so far?
Oh yeah, I would say for me it's Christian von Koenigsegg.
And why is that?
So he started Koenigsegg, which is, I don't know if you know anything about them, but
I know the car, but that's about it.
Yeah. So they were one of the premier hypercars in the world. They make all of their components. There's only a few parts they don't make in house, like windshield wiper blades and tires and brakes. I think is the only things they don't make in house. Obviously, I'm not going that extreme, but I just think you can tell he has so much passion for what he does. He does interviews with people and he's talking about, different components with such detail, this side of the brakes we had to do, reverse threaded bolts because we saw that they were starting to back out. And it's like just his knowledge of his own product to such a small, minute detail like that. Mm-hmm. I just think is very inspirational because it just shows that he knows literally every single nut and bolt why it is what it is in his own product, which, as a CEO, he's at the point where he doesn't really have to, mm-hmm. he can just sort of be like, yeah, the engineering team is doing what they're doing. I trust them. Okay. But he's still so involved in it. I just think that's very cool and inspirational.
No, that's awesome. No, that's super cool, especially because they've been around for quite some time now, and they've built some amazing vehicles. For him to still know what the new vehicles
Yeah.
that they're coming out with and know the ins and outs of every vehicle and have his specific personal touch to it
Yeah.
is truly incredible. And that's what you pay for, right? That's why you're getting a $3 or $4 million car at the end of the
Yeah.
day, is because he's put his time into it to make it perfect, and that's what people are paying for,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah,
really
exactly.
cool. What are some of the major shifts that you're seeing in the watercraft industry at the moment?
Yeah. I think one major one that I've seen, probably even just from, I'd say even 2021 to 2023, was when we first started going to the boat shows in 2021, 2022. People were pretty hesitant on the whole electrification thing. They say, electricity and water, that doesn't mix, or,
Yeah.
I don't get this. I don't see how this is going to take off. And then within a year or two, there was this whole almost narrative shift where it was like the cultural zeitgeist of like the US had just shifted on a dime. And now people are like, oh, I didn't know that, this was an option. This is great. Why wasn't this here last year? I was here last year. But it seems like there's just sort of this fairly quick pivot where people went from being pretty hesitant to being like, why isn't this out yet? Yeah, of course this makes sense. I would say that that's been a pretty big shift, which is a great shift. I think
For sure.
that's certainly something that should be happening.
No, for sure. And it's going to be a lot harder to make cars electric than try to make all the recreational vehicles electric, which is really going to help. A lot of the recreational vehicles are also two-stroke, which puts out a lot more fumes, and they're not emission controlled like vehicles. So it totally makes sense to try to change those up, and it's going to be much easier to navigate that process.
Yeah.
But it's nice that people are starting to open their eyes up and see that as well, especially with you going to these shows, getting your name out there, getting your brand out there, and getting people to support you. And with that year shift, that's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of recreational vehicles are going to get pushed towards electric. Do you see quite a few other companies in the same atmosphere as you guys trying to get something going with electric jet skis and electric boats and etc.?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's not too many electric jet ski companies out there right now. There are some that either are very expensive, or maybe are doing just sort of small production runs, like 50, 100 units, just sort of, almost one-offs essentially.
Yeah.
There's really not a lot of companies trying to do kind of mass production, give Yamaha, Kawasaki, and Sea-Doo a run for their money like we are. Electric boats, there are definitely, especially in the outboard industry, there's been a pretty big boom in that industry, because there's a lot of boats out there that are outboards, and if you can get that market, people don't have to buy a whole new boat. They can just refit their existing boat with an outboard, which is obviously much more appealing instead of having to spend. You've already bought the boat.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then I certainly see it in other recreational vehicles, in dirt bikes. That's really starting to. There's some companies that are getting some really good traction, like Zero and especially Stark. Stark's had some really good traction in the electric dirt bike industry, and now they're sort of in pretty short time. They've gotten their name up with sort of your KTMs, your Yamahas, your Hondas. They're now sort of in that that talk and kind of on that level, which is great. And I think that's amazing. So yeah.
Oh, that's super cool. And yeah, I start seeing the big thing. I'm in a small town in Ontario, and the big, like, lots of fields, lots of trails. So in your free time, you take something. Everyone has a quad or a bike or something. You take it out to go for a rip. But what I keep seeing more and more is the electric bikes, like you just said. And it's something that I've looked into because they're a little bit cheaper, and it's not like I'm I'm at the age I'm not going out all day anymore. I just like to go for a
Yeah.
joyride here and there. So
Yeah.
something like that is almost perfect for going back and forth. And they make them quiet, so even if you're in the city and there's like little
Yeah.
trails or something, you can rip them on the trails because they're not loud. And that was the biggest thing with dirt bikes is they're so loud and
Yeah.
everyone complained about them. So if they could switch
Absolutely.
that. And then same with jet skis. If you're out, if you have a small private lake, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
even a boat, and it's with you have an older group around your lake, and you have something that's quieter, and you're just going to hear the water moving. They're not going to complain as bad, and you can probably go 2 times faster without the complaints. So
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And then there's even also just the aspect of the reduced maintenance.
yeah,
Electric jets. Any of these electric vehicles. You turn it on and you go. I have my quad right now. I gotta pull the carburetor apart and rebuild it because
hmm
the gas sat too long over the winter, and I'm like, I just wanted to go riding. I don't want to spend, and I got like a day or two's worth of work ahead of me. I'd rather spend those 2 days riding than
yeah, for
fixing
sure.
it.
For sure, for sure. And it's one of those things. It's a little bit less maintenance, but there's still some maintenance to do to keep it prim and proper. Some people think like get an electric vehicle, electric car. People will get an electric car and I have no maintenance or less maintenance to do. But you still have a transmission, you still have brakes, you still have tires, you still have
Yeah,
drivetrain. So there's still things to look after, other than just the heart of the car. You don't have to do an oil change every 8,000 kilometers or whatever.
yeah. But I will say that is actually one of the advantages of the electric jet ski aspect of things is, you know, there's not as many of those wear parts. There is no transmission, there is no
Yeah,
tires, or there is no brakes. So there's really only one moving part. So our maintenance is very low. The other thing you have to do is just about every 250 hours of use, just do a coolant flush. And
nice.
then
That's
obviously
awesome.
there is the jet pump itself. If you might have to replace the impeller, but that's just sort of as you suck up gravel and stuff, sort of
Yeah.
par for the course. But yeah, yeah.
No, that was gonna be my next question is what do you actually have to do for maintenance on the e-ski? So that's super nice, especially with those jet skis, because a lot of people if they have a two-stroke in the jet ski itself, so many
Mhm.
people have massive issues with them, especially with a two-stroke, because
Yeah,
if you're not driving a two-stroke daily, it takes a lot to keep it going,
yep,
and it's just one of those things, right? That's just pain in the ass. But if you can go in, put your key in, put your battery in, turn it on, away you go. Super easy, especially for rental companies.
yeah, yeah. And you being up in Ontario, you can relate. This also means that in the winter you don't have to do any winterization. You can just take your batteries out of the jet ski. If it's outside, just throw them in your basement or garage or some place that doesn't get too cold.
Yeah,
Or you can just set it on a trickle, and
just let it sit.
that's that's just it.
Yeah,
Summer
no,
comes
that's
around, drop the batteries back in. You don't have to de-winterize. You just go.
yeah, for sure. Speaking of winter in Ontario, have you heard of any companies doing um, electric snowmobiles?
Yeah, yeah. There was a company, Taiga. Um,
Okay.
I know they were doing electric snowmobiles. I know they did go out of business, but they did just get bought by some European like billionaire. To, I'm not
Okay.
super sure what the status of them are, but you know,
Yeah. No, I haven't. Well, we had a great winter last year, but I
Mm,
haven't heard of electric snowmobiles. I haven't heard a big word about it. You hear the dirt bikes, you hear the quads starting there, Now I heard the jet skis, but I was like, well, maybe but now you don't hear much about it. But as you look to
Yeah.
scale into production in the upcoming months or upcoming years, upcoming months, hopefully, what are your biggest priorities and what are some of the challenges that are holding you back as well?
Yeah. I would say, for me, when scaling, my biggest priority is quality of product.
For sure.
I always want to make sure that what I'm making is something that people want to own, people are excited to own, and just kind of build that good brand loyalty. I want to make sure that I'm not I don't want to put my name on something that it is poor quality, that because
For sure.
I've purchased things that are poor quality and it just annoys me to no end. um or even just something that doesn't have the ability to work on it easily. Again, I'm somebody who works on my stuff, and sometimes you put a bolt in somewhere that is just a
Can't get
pain to
it.
get to,
Yeah.
and it's like, come on, like that's a bolt that I should have easy access to, but now I have to take
Yeah.
off all these different components just to get to that one bolt. That annoys me.
For sure. No, for sure. I used to be a technician in the truck and coach space, and yeah,
Mm,
it's the worst when engineers don't think on the mechanical side of it, actually pulling it
mhm,
back apart. So it's nice that you're
mhm.
putting that thought into it for the mechanics that maybe have to do a little bit of maintenance here and there
Yeah,
later, or even the owner of the vehicle can do it themselves because it's simple to do, right?
yeah, yeah. I want to make sure it's you said it's something they want to own, and that it's something that doesn't annoy them to have to do something. Because again, I've been there. And it sucks.
Hmm. For sure. What do you
Yeah.
see eSki doing in the next few years, and what is your vision for the future of electric recreational vehicles? Are you looking to expand into further
Yeah.
assets once you get to that position, or are you looking to really get the eSki going to begin with?
Yeah.
Obviously, that get the eSki going to begin with, but
Yeah. I'd say it's I certainly have plans to expand. Um, you know, Once eSkis is very well established as a premier electric jet ski manufacturer, in that time period, I want to be able to license the hot swapping battery technology to other, especially electric boat manufacturers, um, because the infrastructure on waterways is going to make electrification a little tough. Just because if anybody who has a boat, especially on a good day, can attest to the lines for marina fueling stations can get pretty long, and normally you're like spots for two, three, maybe four boats, depending on the size of the boats. Um, and it takes about 50 minutes to fill up the tanks, because the tanks are usually 55, 60, 70 gallons. Um, and that issue is going to compound even more so with electrification, where now you might have somebody sitting at a marina for an hour or 2 hours. Um, that's going to make the shift harder. So if you could kind of become the main manufacturer of these hot swapping batteries for the marine industry, now instead of having a bunch of charging stations, you could have a bunch of charging stations with racks of batteries. You come up, you swap your batteries. Again, that does the same thing. It cuts your charge time down drastically. Um, and then from there, again, once we kind of have a good foothold on the marine industry, I'd love to expand into other recreational vehicles, side by sides, ATVs, snowmobiles, um, and utilize the hot swap battery platform to kind of become like you'd said, the Milwaukee or DeWalt battery system for recreational vehicles. I think it's better for the environment. I think it's a better user experience. In the summer, you're done with your jet ski. Well, you pull the batteries out of your jet ski and you put it in your snowmobile, and now you're using these batteries. Batteries like to be charged and discharged. That's where you get the best life cycle for
Performance.
batteries.
Different
They
life
don't like
cycle,
to
yeah.
sit. So then again, that's better for the environment. You're getting the maximum use and life out of these batteries by continuing to use them essentially year round. And then use the consumer don't have to pay for twice the batteries when you're only using them 50% of the year. Now you're using one set of batteries, or again, if you want to buy multiple, but whatever it might be. But now you have one set or two sets for your jet skis, and that could be the same two sets for your snowmobiles, and you can have that same sort of system
That's cool. That's
running
awesome.
for those. So yeah.
No, that's a great idea. How big are the battery packs? Like, I'm assuming you have two batteries that will go in, or is it just one big battery pack that kind of snaps in just like a DeWalt battery?
So we actually there's 8 of them.
8 of them?
Yeah, and they're about 25 pounds a pop. So we tried to have it be at least no more than half of the weight of a 5-pound jerry can. So they're about 11 inches long by 6 by 6.
Okay.
But they're not too bad. You just drop them in. You can carry 2 at a time, or especially if a rack of them, just pick one up, lift it over. And we, like I said, we tried to make it as user friendly as possible, where they're right in the footwell, easy to get to, easy to pull out, easy to put in. So yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I was wondering just how the build was of the battery and what the battery was like. And I think it's a great idea what you guys are doing on eventually expanding further to become that known DeWalt or Milwaukee battery for these vehicles, and they can make their motor systems after fitting a battery like yours.
Mhm.
So you can have those batteries year long. And that's like one of the biggest things, right? Is people are really against electric vehicles because they don't know what is going to happen with the batteries when the batteries go to toast.
Yep.
And the biggest thing, and especially in Canada, is those batteries are going to sit in the cold, even with an electric vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that Tesla's made their doors open, sometimes people can't even get into their Tesla to drive it in the winter.
Yeah.
So that's another big thing. But what is going to happen when these batteries lose charge and sit in landfill? But if you can keep them rolling and keep using them and keep expanding that life cycle, like you guys are doing, trying to make those different platforms and use it year round, I think that's a great idea to really keep things rolling. And maybe you guys could even venture into like a vehicle as well. That would kind of be cool. You going on a road trip, you got like a trunk load of batteries, and away you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, even to the end of what you're saying with the landfill aspect of things, with the batteries being compartmentalized, it also allows. Let's see, I got one here. Yeah. So this is 18650, but this is a cell in the battery, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all it takes is for one of these to go to 0, and then your entire pack is done.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to think how many hundreds, if not thousands, of these are in, say, a Tesla battery, and all it takes is just the one to go bad, and then the whole pack is toast. But with the kind of compartmentalized aspect, and it's also why I kind of broke it up into even more, and that's why we did 8, is because now if one of these cells goes bad, well, now you only have to replace one pack. That's 1/8 of the batteries, and then the other 7 can keep on going and have maybe that extra 15, 20, 25, even 100 hours of usage. And that's better for the environment, it's better for the consumer, because again, now you're not replacing all of them, you're just replacing some of them. And then it also allows us, as battery technology increases, we can sell upgraded battery packs that have better technology, better cells in them. And now again, you as a consumer, well, you can just buy a new pack, a new set of packs, and put it in your jet ski. Now you've maybe doubled or tripled your range just by replacing the batteries.
I love that point that you said of that you broke it up into 8 sets, because that is huge. Because if you, yeah, like you said, you look at a car right now, they're one big battery. One
Mhm.
cell goes, you're toast. You need a whole new battery. That's
That's it.
expensive.
Yeah,
Where if you have these individual smaller batteries, if one cell goes in one of the batteries, you just need to buy one, which would be a hell of a lot cheaper than buying all 8 at one
yeah,
time. No,
exactly.
that's super cool. I love the vision behind that. And I think this is something that's really going to be revolutionary towards the
Thank you.
recreational electric side, because we're starting to see it, but we don't fully see it yet.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is going to make a huge difference. If you could go back to when you started in 2021, what advice would you have given yourself?
Oof, that's a great question. Um, I think if I go back to 2021, um, I would say maybe so instead of doing the retrofit aspect
Mm-hmm.
of things, I think if I could have done it over, I would have liked to have kind of really swung for the fences and tried to make more of a, albeit it would have taken more time and money, but, if I could have, built one that looks like where we're at, aesthetically, with the hot swapping. Now, again, no, be it at that time, we thought, could we do retrofit? Um, but, if I could tell myself, hey, the retrofit isn't, or the kits aren't going to work out, I would just
Mm-hmm.
swing for the fences and go for, something that is akin to what, we're going to be doing to production with now. I think that would have been better.
For sure. Yeah, focus on the main vision that you guys have now built and continue
Yeah.
rolling out.
Yeah.
That's
But
cool.
again, we were experimenting, the plan that we have now wasn't the original plan. We've pivoted. Um,
Yeah.
so, I can't say as to, I don't blame myself for doing what I did at the time. I now see more.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's all a learning factor, right? And that's the thing
Hmm.
about owning any business or anything in life is you gotta try things out to fail and you learn from failing. And that's
Yeah.
where you guys came from, and now you guys are really rolling something out.
Yeah.
But looking back in your journey within engineering, what are some of the most important lessons you've learned with engineering? And what advice would you give to a young entrepreneur wanting, or young person wanting to get into engineering or start up their own manufacturing for something that they're interested in?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, in terms of for starting something and even for engineering, um, I think as engineers, we can get kind of locked into our solution for a problem and not necessarily the problem. So, for example, you know, you could have some solution that for something that you think is great, and it's, you know, this new widget, and you get so locked into the widget that you forget, you might come across something that could maybe do the problem a bit better, but you're so in love with your problem, like, oh, this is the answer for it, that you sort of ignore the fact that you're the problem of what you're trying to solve. Actually, a great example is, so, me being visually impaired, there was an LED cane company, which I loved the cane. It was expensive, but I loved the cane because it illuminated, kind of in a manner that, uh, you know, gave good contrast to things down low, and I loved the cane. Um, but what ended up happening was the canes ended up breaking because of the way they designed it. That they had forgotten to this. The initial problem is an LED cane, um, and when people were using them as canes, they were too brittle and they were breaking. And they ended up going into business. So they got so kind of they fell so in love with their solution of, oh, like, these lights here will be great, and somebody can swap the battery out, it'll be easy for them, that they forgot that the problem was building an LED cane, and they ended up building more of an LED stick
Yeah.
that was fragile. And again, that's just, it's an easy thing to fall into, of just falling in love with your solution and not keeping your eye on the problem. I think is a major thing in being willing to pivot.
Yeah.
And saying, oh, you know what, we do change this design. I know I love this design, but this solution now has changed because it'll solve the problem better. So fall in love with your problem, not your solution.
Okay. Amazing. Awesome. Thank you. Where can people find you on your website? Are you guys on social media? If people wanted to contact you and get pre-ordered eSki.
Yeah. So our website is eskipro.com. We also have, LinkedIn and Instagram, which is just eSki or eSki watercraft. If somebody's interested in, putting a pre-order down, you can do that on the website. If you're interested in potentially, investing, or because, again, we are in our investment round right now, or happen to know somebody who might be interested in investing, I'd reach out to contact@eskipro.com. Send an email there, and we'll respond. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on today, Jack.
Of course.
It's a super cool project that you guys are working on right now, and I am excited to see when you guys have finished it up and see the results that you guys are going to have, because I think it's something that's truly revolutionary within the recreational motorsport space.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us. This has been a great time.
No worries.